We're surging in the polls. The knives are coming out. The opposition research machines are churning. And you know what? That's a good thing, because I'm running to be your next president. I want to lead this country, and I better darn well be able to take some questions along the way. Stay skeptical. I would be too. Let me just address them transparently. Most popular questions we've gotten, in order. First, what is my relationship with the World Economic Forum? Answer, none, other than being probably their biggest critic here in the United States. And then the reason people are asking me this, though, is because the World Economic Forum named me on a list of so-called young global leaders. They did it despite the fact that I turned down their award. They kept my name on that list despite the fact that I repeatedly asked them to take it off because I did not share their values. I'm an opponent of it. Well, when they refused to do it, you know what I did? I sued them because I believe in taking action. That's the World Economic Forum question. Next popular question we get is, what is my connection with George Soros? Answer, none, zero. Indirect, direct, zero connection with George Soros. Why are people asking this question? It's because back in 2010, by the way, long before George Soros had completely fallen off the deep end and gone into these progressive causes, funding these disastrous, toxic prosecutors who are soft on crime, who I've also railed against. Long before then, in 2010, I won a scholarship when I was 24, 25 years old, headed to law school, that was partly funded by, not George Soros, but Paul Soros, who's a relative, a brother of George Soros, who made his money independently, who, by the way, is now dead, that funded hundreds of people. Hundreds of kids won that scholarship. I was one of them to go to graduate school at the age of 24, 25, back when I didn't have a lot of money to do it.
All right, guys, so I'm going to make this video because a lot of people have been sending me this video because a lot of you are saying that, hey, man, you need to look deeper into Vivek Ramaswamy. There's a lot of issues with him. He's associated with George Soros. He's associated with the WEF. He's a Democrat Party plant, right? He's a used car salesman that has invaded the Republican Party to, I don't know, trick voters, okay, into voting for him. I'm not exactly sure what the end goal would be, but I want to respond to some of these criticisms of Vivek Ramaswamy because, quite honestly, I think that some of these criticisms are really, I think, not as well researched as they come off. Some of them are silly, some of them are disingenuous, and some of them are just downright false, to be quite honest with you. Now, again, before I get into this, I just want to make a couple things clear before I talk about it. Again, I just want to break down a video that is going viral, that has been sent to me by a lot of people. It was done by Anomaly, somebody who I like. Okay, I agree with a lot of things that he says. I think he's a great guy, at least from what I have watched of his content. Okay, so this is not intended in any way to be shot at him or anything like that. This is just responding to some of the criticisms and questions that people have about Vivek Ramaswamy and some of the criticisms that he is receiving, okay? Because people got to understand that no politician will ever be perfect, okay? There's no politician that was at the GOP debate that was perfect. Trump is not perfect. Nobody's perfect, right? Everybody's going to have their flaws, okay? But the thing that worries me about a lot of the criticism being directed at Vivek Ramaswamy is that people might overthink so much and get so nitpicky about things that we're going to miss out on probably the most promising GOP candidate that we've seen in a long time in terms of just raw intelligence, right, and potential. And ultimately, the ability to unite this country and to rally this country around a vision. And I don't want us to miss out on that because of petty criticisms like Vivek Ramaswamy took a scholarship, right? I mean, I'm just saying, like, that is what a lot of some of these criticisms are. And to me, it's quite silly. The second thing I want to say before I get into this is that I don't want anybody to get it twisted. Trump's my number one guy, right? As of right now, under the ideal scenario for me, based off what I've heard and seen from other GOP candidates, I would love another 4 years of Trump in 2024 with Vivek Ramaswamy as vice president. That's what I want to see. And I'm going to explain to you guys why I think that this is a winning ticket. Honestly, I think this is the only winning ticket, or one of the very few winning tickets that the Republican Party has right now in the general. I'll tell you guys why. I'll give you an argument for it. And then ideally, after Vivek Ramaswamy proves himself as VP, I would love to see 8 years of Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, again, you know, if DeSantis wins, I'm not going to be super mad about it. Okay, if Vivek happens to win, I'm not going to be super mad about it, even though those two things are extremely unlikely. The nominee is definitely probably going to be Trump. Again, I'm not one of these people where I get super upset because I'm more concerned about the Democrats, right? I'm more concerned about getting Democrats out of office, getting Joe Biden up out of office, right? And I realize that at the end of the day, no GOP candidate's going to be perfect. But if they're, you know, at least 50, 60, 70% where I'm at, I'm okay with that. Like, I can live with that, okay? Because there's nobody in the race that's going to 100% agree with, you know, what the base wants, right? Even Trump doesn't do that on certain issues. And that's just the reality of politics. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just get into this video.
So first, let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician.
Of a mill worker's son who dares to defy the odds. The hope of a skinny kid with a funny name who believes that America has a place for him too.
So who is Vivek Ramaswamy? The Obama plagiarizing Big Pharma CEO who wrote a book less than a year ago in which...
Okay, so let's start with the Obama plagiarizing Big Pharma CEO. I don't know why people keep saying he plagiarized Obama, because the only, I guess, words that he used from Obama's speech, if he used it from Obama's speech, is skinny kid with a funny last name. I'm not sure if that qualifies as plagiarism. Why do I say that? Well, because I know what plagiarism is, right? Plagiarism is copying a significant portion of somebody else's work without citing the source. Skinny kid with a funny name, him taking that phrase, I'm just saying, is nobody allowed to use the phrase skinny kid with a funny name unless they're, you know, trying to be like Obama or trying to be Obama, which again is criticism of Vivek Ramaswamy that I've heard, that, well, he's trying to be the Republican Obama. And I said, okay, well, let's actually break down what that means. What are you actually trying to say? Well, what they're saying, without realizing that they're saying it, is that they were referring to how Obama ran his campaign back during 07, 08, okay? Everybody knows, and this is just a fact, okay? Although Obama was one of the most divisive presidents that we've ever had, his actual campaign was one of the most uniting that we've ever seen, okay? Obama did something that we hadn't seen in a long, long time in politics, that he actually really did unite people across, you know, racial and political lines under this idea of hope and change. Now, again, a lot of that turned out to be BS, but the criticisms of Vivek Ramaswamy is that he's running his campaign like Obama, which basically just means he's trying to unite people. That's what it means. And I don't think that's a bad thing when you're talking about trying to win a general election, right? If you're going to win a general election, you need to unite people around something. You got to unite them around a vision. The problem with the GOP outside of Trump is that none of these other guys have an actual real vision, right? They can't really articulate a vision, okay? And that's why a lot of these guys, I don't think, really are as electable as Trump or Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, in Trump's case, this time around, he's actually going to unite America around the fact that he's being persecuted for political reasons, okay? That's what I believe. But again, my point is that outside of, you know, Trump, Vivek has actually a vision, okay? He's able to articulate that vision clearly, which is something that is sorely missing from any other candidate in the GOP, okay? It's sorely missing. And that's one of the reasons why Ron DeSantis is struggling. He's just not putting out a vision that people can really get behind the same way that Trump did in 2016, the same way that Vivek Ramaswamy is doing right now.
He compared Trump to sore loser Stacey Abrams, said he respects Pence, and says that Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th.
Okay, so let's break this down. Let's break this down. Now, what are you comparing this to? What are you comparing this to? If you're comparing this to other GOP candidates in the race, what is he saying that's any different than what any other GOP candidate had said on stage about the election in 2020 and Mike Pence? Nothing, right? All those other guys on stage believe the same thing, okay? They all believe the same thing. Now, what separates Vivek Ramaswamy from those guys? What separates him from those guys? He's the only one on stage that has unequivocally come out and said, although I disagree with Trump's actions, I would have made different judgments than he made on that day. And he's been very clear about this. I do not think that what he did was a crime. I don't think he should be locked up for it. I will pardon Trump for it. Okay? All the other GOP candidates on stage won't come out and say that. They can't take a solid stance on that. So again, this is what I'm talking about when I say that people are getting to the point where they're just nitpicking everything. And they're trying to make a whole bunch of something out of nothing. When again, if you look at this criticism right here compared to the rest of the politicians in the field, he's better than them. Because ultimately, although they all feel the same type of way about 2020 and Mike Pence, Vivek Ramaswamy is the only one that's saying, well, even though I don't necessarily like what he did, I don't think he should go to jail for it, and I would pardon him for it. He's the only one that's coming out here and saying that. He's the only one saying I would support him even if he's convicted. By the way, you know who else had a negative opinion about Trump's actions in regards to January 6th and the 2020 election? Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, if you believe the things that came out about what he said behind the scenes. So my point is that being critical of Trump and the way he conducted himself after the election in January 6th that's not abnormal. That's what a vast majority of these people believe, okay? That's what the vast majority of them believe. The difference between Vivek Ramaswamy and them is that Vivek Ramaswamy actually will come out and say, look, I want to pardon the president. Even though I disagree with his actions, I want to pardon the president. What he did was not a crime. I think that's better than a vast majority of everybody else in the race, okay? Outside of Trump himself, obviously, okay? I'm just saying.
Man who tweeted out, well said, George Soros, and seemingly even parroted his rhetoric on open societies.
Okay, so let me talk about this one, okay? Because again, if you read the article that George Soros wrote in the Wall Street Journal, basically it is a criticism of China and their totalitarianism that, you know, basically is oppressing their people, okay? And he talked about the dangers of the escalation between the U.S. and China and how that can lead to war. China is essentially, you know, going to go to war with Taiwan. They're going to take away Taiwan. Like, it was basically an article critical of China. Now, people may say, well, it's bad that Vivek Ramaswamy agreed with George Soros on something, right? Which, you know, hey, I disagree with George Soros on a lot of things, okay? I don't necessarily think that he's a good guy, okay? I really don't like the fact that he funds these far-left DAs and this woke progressive agenda, which, you know, really doesn't make sense to me considering that he's literally funding us in a direction of communism, the same thing that he's basically criticizing here in this Wall Street Journal article. But I'm just saying, you know, I'm not sure if this is necessarily a big thing just because Vivek Ramaswamy happens to agree with George Soros on how China is dangerous, right? I'm just saying. I mean, if you actually read the article, it is very critical of the Chinese state. And Vivek Ramaswamy agreeing with George Soros' criticism of the Chinese state, I don't necessarily think is the worst thing in the world. It's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, he's being critical of China. I'm just saying, I mean, if you actually read the article, okay?
A man who took money for his law school from a Soros fellowship.
All right, so let's address this one. So this is a scholarship, okay? He got a scholarship to go to law school, and the scholarship came from the Paul and Daisy Soros Fellowship for New Americans. What is this? Well, this is not George Soros. This is George Soros's brother, okay? And he took a scholarship to go to school, which I don't think, again, is a bad thing to take a scholarship to pay for school, okay? If somebody's saying, look, I'm going to pay for you to go to school, a merit scholarship, I think you would be a fool not to take it, especially considering the fact that, one, law school costs hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, some of them, okay, especially if you're going to one of these Ivy League schools up north. And two, there is no strings attached, okay? When you talk about getting a merit scholarship, for a vast majority of them, there's no strings attached. They just give it to you because you earned it in some way, right? That's how most merit scholarships work, okay? Now, some people say, well, he was already a millionaire, okay? And I think Anomaly is going to bring that up, that, you know, he did this despite already being a millionaire. Let me actually...
Said he did it in a video defending himself, quote, when I didn't have the money.
When I didn't have the money and it was a merit scholarship.
Yet Fox News reported that he made millions of dollars that year and $1 million every year for a couple years prior.
Okay, so if you actually look at this excerpt from the article here, he did not make $1 million every year for a couple years prior. That's not what it says. It actually says that he reported a total of $1,173,690 in income in the 3 years prior. Okay, so he reported a total. That means that in those last 3 years, he had made over $1 million in 3 years total. He didn't make $1 million a year. Doesn't mean that he was a millionaire, okay? And even if he was a millionaire, that's still irrelevant to the fact that law school costs hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, okay? So just because he made $1 million in 3 years prior doesn't mean that he actually had hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay for law school, okay? Doesn't mean that he had cash in hand to pay for law school. Again, if somebody is giving you a scholarship, a merit-based scholarship to go to school, I'm not sure how many people would actually turn that down. Even if you made $1 million. I'm not sure how many people would turn that down when somebody's saying, look, I'm going to pay for you to go to school for free. It happens all the time. Nobody has any clue what his actual personal finances was like. Nobody knows whether or not he actually had $1 million in the bank. Nobody knows what his net worth was, because income and net worth are two different things, okay? Net worth is actually how much you're worth, assets minus liabilities. I have no clue what that was. I have no clue how much money he paid in taxes. If you take out taxes, which I'm guessing with this much money, with this much income, okay, he was probably paying 40, 50, 60%. So once you take out taxes, once you consider assets and liabilities, yeah, it would make sense that even if you were a millionaire, that you would strongly consider taking a scholarship that's going to pay for you to go to school, especially when school costs hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, which he may or may not have had, again, considering taxes, considering other obligations he may have had. And again, this is the type of stuff that people don't consider. This is the type of stuff, this is why I say a vast majority of these critics, they're petty, right? They don't really hold water when you actually really analyze it and you actually really understand what's going on, how some of these things work. Okay, this is nitpicking.
So he lied about that. A man who made a fortune off of a failed Alzheimer's drug.
Okay, so let's address that. Again, this is what happens when, again, people don't really understand how things work. In the pharmaceutical industry, it is very risky. It is not abnormal for somebody to make millions of dollars off of a failed drug, okay? And the reason why is because in pharmaceuticals, a lot of people bet on the idea that a company is going to develop a drug that is going to be successful. Now, there's a lot of red tape in pharmaceuticals, but again, that is essentially what happens all the time. People throw in a bunch of money to develop a drug, and then they hope that it gets FDA approved. They hope that it passes clinical trials, and they make millions of dollars off of it. The owners, the makers of the drug, they make millions of dollars even if the drug is not successful, because they raise millions of dollars from investors. Investors knowingly risk their capital. Okay, this is capitalism. They risk their capital and they bet whether or not the drug is going to be successful. This is not abnormal. This is normal in pharmaceutical financing. This is 100% perfectly normal. Okay. So again, this is why I say you actually really have to understand how a lot of this stuff works in order to really understand why these criticisms are not, they're just not that legitimate. They're just not that legit.
Alzheimer's drug, and a man who just last year wrote a Wall Street Journal op-ed in which he said, the most important step in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic was the distribution of vaccines.
Okay, so also what was said in that article as well too, if you read the whole thing, is that he was against mandates, social distancing. He was against that stuff. He was against that stuff. Now, just because he believes that the vaccine plays a role in fighting the pandemic, I'm not sure what differentiates his position from that of somebody like, I don't know, President Trump, who doesn't talk about the vaccine anymore because he knows it's unpopular. But, you know, there are some people who do, you know, think that, hey, the vaccine was a net positive. Now, I know a lot of people have negative views of the vaccine, but I don't think that somebody who, again, sees the vaccine in a positive light, I'm not sure if that should be a disqualifier if they're not mandating it for people, right? If they're not pushing for mandates, which he's not. In fact, he was actually doing the exact opposite in that article, right? I read the article. Again, I'm not sure why this is such a big deal. Again, I'm trying to figure out, okay, are all these things disqualified? All these little things disqualifiers, right? Is this what we're doing? Again, I'm not saying there's no legitimate criticism of Vivek Ramaswamy. Certainly, there has to be some legitimate criticism. But a vast majority of the criticisms that I'm saying are not very legitimate. Like, for example, the WEF one, right? The World Economic Forum, where they nominated him to be one of their young global leaders or something like that. Vivek Ramaswamy actually declined that, but they decided to include it and to try to make it seem like he was affiliated with the organization anyways. Vivek sued them over that, and he won, and then he donated the money. So he's not associated with the WEF, right? He sued and won. He's not a puppet of George Soros just because he agreed with George Soros on how bad China is. I'm not sure if that makes him a puppet. I'm also not sure if accepting a scholarship from Paul Soros' brother to pay for school makes him a George Soros puppet as well either. I'm not sure. Again, if any of those things are legitimate criticisms, they're not. They're not. It's just, it's finding something and trying to make something more out of it than what it is. But what Vivek Ramaswamy is a businessman. And as a businessman, he's going to make decisions that people aren't necessarily going to like politically, because business is different from politics. Okay? As a businessman, you're not supposed to be making decisions based off politics. You're supposed to make decisions based off business. Trump has done that as a businessman, right? Vivek Ramaswamy has done that as a businessman. And people got to understand, as a businessman, yeah, you're going to make business decisions that people may not necessarily like politically, but if you're trying to do what you have to do for the bottom line, I mean, that's capitalism, right? That's capitalism.
That's in 2022. So who is Big Pharma salesman Vivek? Well, he's whoever you want him to be, because just like Obama, he'll say whatever he has to say, even copying Obama.
Well, he always was a libertarian. That's been documented. He's been a libertarian ever since he was an undergrad in college. So again, I'm trying to figure out where these criticisms coming from that he just says whatever people want him to say, when he has taken stances on issues that are very controversial that a lot of people kind of don't like. Like, for example, when it comes to requiring people pass a citizenship test in order to vote, that's not a very popular thing. He's not just saying what people want him to say. When he came out and said, hey, I don't want to fund Ukraine, okay, or that I would pardon Trump. He's not come out here saying things that people just want him to say. He's saying things that will hurt him after he's done with politics. He's coming out here and saying stuff, the same type of stuff that hurt Trump and his business and his ability to make money because he got involved with politics. I think Vivek Ramaswamy is actually losing more considering the things that he's saying. If he was just running as a regular old Republican, right, maybe even an anti-Trump, never Trump Republican, I would agree. I would agree, because as a businessman, that's a great business decision. But it's not a great business decision, right, to run as a guy that supports Trump. Not in 2023. So again, I'm trying to figure out exactly where this is coming from. Where is the legitimate argument that he's just going out here saying whatever people want him to say, and that, you know, he doesn't really believe these things. I mean, again, politicians flip-flop, right? It's not abnormal for people to flip-flop on certain positions. But when it comes to some of the core things, I think he's believed these things for a long time, and I don't have any reason to believe that he hasn't. Just saying.
To tell the naive and foolish sheeple what they want to hear. Everyone's giving this guy softball interviews and weak debates. Vivek, if you want a real challenge, come on my channel. I don't buy your shtick at all.
You know, everybody's entitled to their opinion, you know, and people who see this as a disqualifier, you know, hey, they're entitled to their opinions. I just don't think that some of his criticisms are very well researched or that thought out. But, you know, hey, that's just me. I mean, people are entitled to their opinions. You guys can decide what you want to decide. I like the guy, but, you know, hey, maybe he will get exposed. Maybe there was something that will come out to say, hey, he's too good to be true, you know, and it is what it is. I mean, it's politics, right? You can't really trust any of these guys, right? To be quite honest with you, that is the nature of the game. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.